Okay, we're live. Right back at 01:02:03. Okay, we're fucking live. Yeah, the other one just quit out. What a rude fucking phone I have. The radio tab or whatever app for the Wi-Fi sign up came up, and it just knocked the phone app offline, right? It just whoop. I forgot to shut the Wi-Fi off, and so this is part B or part 2 of the part 4, talking about the work. I never even got to the, which is fine, I guess. I can kind of get into the subject matter. I certainly did a long enough introduction, the other video, to what the hell I was talking about. I know I was way off base of where I was going. We're in the Shaw's Pit, but affectionately, colloquially known, collectively here, locally known, that's the word, is the Shaw's Pit, because the Shaw's supermarket was here. It was here for a while. Long enough to, they may have been the ones that actually had the buildings built. Who knows, right? Cleared it out, whatever. Got their name. Now they're not here, but a lot of those businesses that were here then, I don't know, I think they're still here, some of them, but certainly they've been here all the time that I've been here. Now, these are new construction buildings. I want to point that out, right? You can't even see them, that's fine, but you know, as a fact, it's nowhere near, modern. This is a modern mall. It's nowhere near what, with an equal amount of lighting here, right? We'll just say, between the theater, I'm just roughly speaking, right, without measuring it pound for pound, lumen per lumen, I think there may be more light here, right? Like, I don't know, but, there's, you might say, an equal amount of light between the downtown and here on the fringes, right by the highway, providing some lovely white noise background. Certainly you can, you're able to see me at roughly at the same time of night. You're able to see me as far as I can see myself in the, the screen. I'm able to, like, this is my guide, so with roughly the same amount of light, right, you can see it's much different here in this shopping ass mall than the downtown, where the arts district and the art school and the theater is, and very lovely old buildings where I was pointing out that they're all over 100 years old. The newest building would be the parking garage, which was at least 70 years old at this point, 60 years old, somewhere close to my age, right? But exempting that. So we're talking about, like, my interest in coming up here was architecture. There's a lot of Victorian architecture, and as I've talked about before, there is Masonic code work that's embedded into the architecture. It's one of the things that I came up here to understand, to look at, to evaluate, was the symbolic value of the construction of a lot of these churches and temples and synagogues. It's part of the old tradition, the Stone Age tradition. And there was a building I was looking at today on the way down here. It's the Travelers Building, 1859 to 1913. That's roughly how long it took them to build that building, right? So it was finished over 100 years ago. And I've been in the building. There's nothing really necessarily notable, but they've renovated it kind of. It was always sort of a boarding house type of thing. So that's a fairly well-known landmark in this area, right? So I came here to learn more, to see more firsthand about architecture, which I've always loved. My dad was a carpenter growing up. He was a fix-it guy. I grew up learning how to use hand tools, and not just shovels, rakes, wrenches, screwdrivers, all of it, give or take. Ratchets. I can identify different types of wrenches and different types of screwdrivers and all this kind of stuff. Hand tools. The different bits. When I have a cordless, nice DeWalt cordless setup that I got through my trust. So we're talking about a building, how construction has changed. There was an encodement of the within the grid of where they place these buildings of certain lines of force that they would intentionally try to capture or to manipulate, maybe, or to use in some way, or to emulate, or to impose the grid pattern, to impose a certain mindset, certain activity, certain behavior pattern for or from the people involved in that arrangement, that living arrangement, the residential and business arrangement where we all live within, that's imposed upon us. And partially of that, you can see that never more clearly than here in this rectangle of buildings that are just look like it's a grid. It's just a very clear imposition of a grid. There's a parking grid structure, and we all abide by it because it's convenient and blah, 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 blah. It's part of the order. It's part of the pattern recognition that we have to get some type of order on what would otherwise be chaos or mass turmoil or whatever. Whether or not it is or it isn't the point. That's the assumed or the presumed reasoning behind imposing of the grid for these kind of methods of slowing down traffic or whatever. This is part of the study of architecture, part of the study of, the order, the Masonic order, and or if it even was them, or if not, some other interests had their way as well, which is why you wind up with a street that goes for a while, and in the middle of it is a lot, a house, or a building of some type, and then on the other side of the street continues the road, and you can't, or the road is just broken. You don't see how you're getting from here to there, whatever. Same assumed road with a bunch of detours in it. This kind of stuff, fouling up the works, right? That's a thing as well. That how easily can you make it down the avenue without bumping into, say, a monument or some type of architecture that's impeding the flow of a movement of the traffic? Question mark. So part of that is part of it is the study of how stuff is laid out in the city itself, right? And nevermore is it easier to see than here in the Northeast, where there is so much close togetherness of the traffic, and it's easier to see this stuff without having to look up from the sky and look down on it and, oh wow, hey, holy fuck, it's not as, because of the terrain and the environment, it's a different, building half on a swamp or whatever. It becomes a different, trader trail. So it becomes a different necessity to road up, as they would say, or to road down the pathway that you're using, a trader's trail that you turn into a road. And it wasn't, it's not part of the grid, but it helps us to get, easier from across town, right? To where the docks are. And so the mariners, mariners have a greater say on the seaport community than do some other groups than, say, like the Masons, right? Yet they'll build a fucking hospital, they'll put up churches, and some of the architecture you can see in the stone is of Templar or, like Rosicrucian, if you know what you're looking at, or there's a 12 sections of different animals or characters that are in there or whatever, or the symbols. You start decoding them as to what the building was, or what it's used by, or who made it, or whatever, or anything, whatever. You start getting clues in how the building was made. Not so now anymore. Right? You can see with different type of architecture that it had been, the old type, they had put, when we talk about degrees, right? Your educational degrees had gone into it. Now they feed everything into an algorithm, a model, plot out a design for the, what this shopping mall should look like, right? So that, on a substantive level, those buildings, especially the stone ones, were meant to last a long time. Well, we are now at the end of the Stone Age. We're now at the induction of the Aquarian Age, the Aquarius Age, which is the water bearer, which is supposed to dissolve everything. The ending of the Piscean calendar was 2012, the end of 2012, the beginning of 2013. I could feel it. And that my resources, my guides have suggested to me, take it as you see fit, the ending of the Kali Yuga is at 2026. Now, I'm not the one that came up with that number. People who are into this stuff and able to do much more of that math and figuring blah, 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 right? Now, there's arguments on it, whatever, blah, 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 blah. However, Pluto has finished its return here. The 1776 was the magic year for the United States that we became. The year was 1776. All right. 250 years. I'm closer to 1776 than I am 1976. Or 2026, I should say. Right? This was all part of the Stone Age. They made Grand Monticello. What's his name? Jefferson's plantation. Monticello, I believe. And I grew up in a place that had, turn of last century architecture still there. Whale Oil Road, sailing vessels. I'm from a different time, and I'm slowly, even though I know how computers work and I, blah blah blah. I've been studying that stuff. I'm a technician. I've been, I can tell you how a lot of that stuff works, on a substantive level, much more than just, this is how this program works. No, I'll tell you how, I've done that. I've done videos on how touchscreens work, right? You're part of the circuit. That's all you got to know. It's set up for you to be part of the circuit, right? So with all of this, I say I've seen enough and I'm ready to go, but you got to understand what that really also implies. I mean, yeah, it's sad for you, and it's whatever. It's sad that, the knowledge should go, except where the hell do you think I'm going? How far do you really think I'm going? Yeah, I got another. Here's the thing about it, like as a caterpillar turns into a moth, or it turns into, there's a pupal stage. It turns into the the worm, or the caterpillar turns into a butterfly, beautiful butterfly. And there are a lot of notable examples of that. The ugly swan, the ugly duckling, whatever. And one stage, it looks a certain way. We're not going to call it ugly or whatever, but it's a pupal, it's a worm, it's a caterpillar, right? Oh, it's cute, yeah, whatever, okay. That's the state here. The human, we'll call it pupil, right? Like a student is a pupil. Like it just, they call you a worm, they call you a caterpillar. When you're in a primary school, they call you a worm. Right, you're a caterpillar, right? A pupil, the pupil stage, right? Important to know that, important to understand that. So I'm, as more of this new stuff comes in, I'm just having a hard time adjusting. I don't particularly care about it. I'm only here because I serve a God I don't understand, that I don't name, but I love just the same. It's an unconditional love. And I'm here for the God of my understanding, the higher power of my understanding, and not necessarily even for the humans. Although God pushes it off on you guys, the humans, that I'm here to help the humans in whatever capacity for however long that's going to be or short that's going to be. There's a certain point here that I'm just like, I'm just broken. And I'm trying to hold on. Those of you who are sending me money, give me a fucking joy. You give me a reason to be. Because I can get my herbs. I can get my meds. I can get my food. Right? You help me survive. Right? Doesn't take much to bring me joy. The joy is conditional. Right? If you want unconditional joy or happiness or love, go to God. Right? With the humans, it's conditional. It's like all of that. It's conditional. It's motherfucking conditional. However, right? You just got to find the person or the whatever, the thing where you can meet enough of the conditions, like bicycling. Like everything, the majority of bicycling to me is a joy. When there's a flat tire and I don't have the money to fix the flat tire, there's not a joy in that, but I still have an unconditional love for the bicycle, right? Even if I can't use it, I still love it. And it does also make me that much sad when I can't use my bicycle, or my bicycle gets stolen, or something happens to it. You know what I'm saying? So just let that sit with you of what I'm talking about. That it doesn't take much. I'm grateful for $1. I'm grateful for $5. I'm grateful for whatever people can spend, because it's like you help me however you can. And maybe if it's a fucking rice cooker, that's fine. Like, I'm even willing to have a wish list of stuff I can use that would be useful, right? Like, oh, okay, that's a thing too, right? I'm willing to accept, because right now I have a mailing address, and that would be even cool as fuck too, right? So I'll just throw that out to you. Anyway, so we're here in the new construction, and I want to bring that up. I want to point this out. Like, none of these buildings are older than I am. Just say that. And these, the John Deere's may be older than some of these buildings, rusted ass fucking things, especially that square top thing. And so I wanted to point out the contrast, and we're talking about going from the Stone Age into, the glass and plastic and polymers and epoxy resin and the catalyst. We're talking about fiberglass. We're talking about molded, blown molds, injection molding. Oh man, 3D printing. There is a whole new spanking wave of technical stuff coming with construction now, and plywoods and plyboards. It's not even like plywood. It's plyboard, chipboard they call it. Drywall. It's not even like plaster. It's gypsum. One of the major building materials. It's like chalk. It's a type of chalk. It's gypsum. They mine that like it's they mine it, tear up mountains to get it. It's calcium, high in calcium. It's a white substance, and they have a type of laminated paper on the surface, which you paint. Right? So gypsum and they have a bonding agent, mud they call it, which is a liquid, a viscous liquid that you use for taping, what they call taping, which is putting a wide ass piece of like paper tape between the join, not joist, it's where they join the two rock boards, the sheetrock fit together, so it's a nice flat surface, right? Part of the building process. It's brand new. They're not working with stone anymore. They're not putting it, not even with brick. They pour a base of concrete, and like I've said before, the building code now, or building defaction is, they were trying to start their car for the last 5 minutes, or 10 minutes or whatever. So they pour a foundation of concrete, and one of the main ingredients in concrete, there's the Portland cement, but the main ingredient in concrete is the aggregate, which is the sand and small rocks, which they pull up from, number one, they mine from the ocean. That's one of the places. There's an illegal trade for sand, a black market trade, for sand. And not even different types, but just like all types, not even like, from one specific, from anywhere that the people can steal the sand from worldwide. This is huge, billions of dollars, however much. And I'm showing you this stuff, right? How much concrete goes into building one of these things, for the walls, maybe not so much for the fascia material, the facing material, which is I don't even know what that material is. Something that allows you to put a terracotta on it or whatever. But mortar is a type of cement, holds the bricks together. Right? So mortar requires finer sand than foundation grade concrete, or what's going to be sidewalk, what you're walking on, right? Weight bearing, and you got to think, well, hey, people don't weigh a lot, and that's true, relatively speaking, to concrete. However, they do haul stuff. There is the allowance for them hauling equipment, which weighs few hundreds, some hundreds, on the sidewalk, right? It's part of the building of it, the strength, the relative strength of what the concrete has to be. So to get that, the structural strength of concrete, you have to have a little bigger rocks, bigger stone, because theoretically the concrete of itself doesn't. It's a dust, right? It's a dust, fine. I don't know any other word to call than dust that you add water to. Or ash, I guess, maybe that might be another way to put it, like a volcanic. They used to use volcanic ash for that. They don't anymore. I don't know, whatever. They certainly don't use that here in the States. They use pirated sand here in the States. But technically, it's not pirated in the same way. They pull it from the ocean, which is they have companies that get permits to do that. And blah 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 blah. So anyway, so concrete. So where you get your sand from, you don't even know. We don't know. You just see a bag of play sand, like, all right, hopefully you get it from some quarry locally that's, locally sourced, that actually is a legitimate quarry and not some beach they're wrecking up somewhere. But who knows? It's one of the things that the integrity within the building, of the building trade, of the building management, blah, 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 of all of that, of the construction trades, from not only laborers and all their problems, but you have a number of affiliated unions and stuff, and this isn't to get into the union or whatever. However, they locally, this is a union state, union heavy, and the problem is that politics had gotten in there, and there was a lot of corruption with all other, like the church, like all other institutions, is subject to greed, and the ego and whatever it is that, whatever, it's just whatever, more of the same, right? So, assumedly, like, okay, well, that's part of the Stone Age bullshit that's supposed to go. However, like, some things in society move slower than others. So, anyways, to get back onto traffic, back onto track, so, I mean, some of this is when we talk about, the founding fathers and who did what and who's able to afford what and, to build what and hire whoever to do whatever job, whether good or bad or whatever, all falls within the realm of, learning in a place like this where everything is cramped together, and sometimes you get a cheat codes or whatever, maybe, or you like it's a huge conflux, and this isn't even as bad as, say, up north in Boston or New York, whatever. This size here city is somewhat manageable enough. I wouldn't want to live in a bigger city than this, The one I came from isn't as big as this, but it's a sister city. Anyway, so the concrete, like I said, big huge industry in that, and you got to know you don't know where it's coming from, and part of, like I said, you don't want to get too much into the politics of things or too much into, the wrong kind of points here, or I guess off the points I'm trying to make, because this isn't a survey of the politics of the area, but you can't help it in some way to include some kind of comments on the political state or the economic state that allowed the building of certain things back when, to allow the churches to have certain freedoms, which good, bad, or whatever. I have to say the churches do work with the poor people here. Like, I'll just say that, right? Pretty much the majority, maybe all of the churches that are in those wonderful, lovely buildings work with either the poor or civic groups or AA, 12-step meetings, and like the food pantry. They work with the public. So I don't want to hear anything bad about the churches locally or whatever, or the church in general, because the leadership of these wonderful monuments, the stone buildings from last century, not this close one, but the other one, the turn of the century, they really do some work for the public, and I want to make sure to mention that there really is a outreach in this city for poor people in general. There's shelters, there's places that people can go, warming shelter, and there's allowances for like a food pantry, or like I said, 12-step meetings or whatever, or ACA or whatever. And so that's one of the things that I've been blessed with, is being able to get into some of these churches, even if it's in the basement. Some of them it's on the third floor, whatever, it's in different places that allow you to get into, and you see, oh wow, hey, this is a wonderful church. Maybe I could come here on a Sunday or whatever, some other day that's not my meeting day, and go to the church here, because the people that you run into who normally go to the church, whatever, are just very nice people. And I help out at one of the food pantries, the church by the Ivy League College, which is very nice, and it's a wonderful place, wonderful experience on the third Monday of the month, I think it is. We just have a great time. And so I've been very happy to have been part of that experience. And so that's part of the spirit of a lot of those old buildings are that wonderful space that they build for togetherness, right? Like to commune. And that's part of what the communion with the Holy Communion is to get together to discuss God or to talk about the Holy Trinity or, the Holy Spirit or whatever in the best way, right? And you can't hold it against people who've misused their trust or in whatever office they're in, right? Like you can't, do whatever you want, but you can't really blame the institution unless, of course, the institution is covering over, which is a whole other thing I'm not getting into. But that includes political, not only about the churches, but political, and also in the administration of these places, right? That they know better, they take bribes or whatever. Anyway, so so there's been a decline in the architecture, clearly, and that's one of the things that's important to, where am I at? 31, it looks like 31 minutes, all right. So the decline in architecture is one of the things that I wanted to point out, and it's funny, the Chili's building is almost one of the most architecturally interesting of the buildings here. Clearly, this is just a place to go shopping, and there's not any of the trappings of any of those wonderful churches that I've been to. And so I wanted to point out, like, it just seemed to me really important. I just so happened to be here, but I'm like, I've been here before. I knew what this place was, and I'm like, let me do a video. Or I guess, let me do two, because the first one got shut off. And so, hey, it's fine enough because I have a lot to say in this matter, and it's probably all for the better. I got 2 videos on this because I'm rambling like a motherfucker. Without a script, I ramble, which some people like that more than others, but, generally speaking, I can somewhat get back on track where I was, if I can remember. It's one of the reasons I came to Providence is because of those wonderful churches. And once again, you can, with the right kind of, instruction manual, right? With the right kind of eye and knowing what you're looking for, you can, especially the towers, Jachin and Boaz. Those are pretty obvious. They're right in the front. They're, it's an odd, they have these odd, and a lot of times too, the towers, they have those slits, long, very narrow, long slits, which are for the archers or the gunners, I guess, even too. Definitely archers. It's not big enough. Maybe you could fit a rifle through. You couldn't fit anything else through. But primarily the archers, especially when there's a bevel around the edges. And so the towers tend to have those archer slits. And so even though now they're not going to be having archers in there, originally, 150 plus years ago, it was a consideration of having the archers, a place where the archers can go, the towers, to fend off invaders, right? And so I, dare say, I'll go off into this tangent, that a lot of those churches were built specifically with towers or with curved staircases or whatever, because of the ability to defend, against invaders. And that's kind of an important kind of thing to me, to be able to distinguish that in a building, that's why they did that shape that way, right? Blah, 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 blah. Right. I'm just switching between one cold hand to the other. So, all right, concrete, modern building material, cracks in 5 years, modern major source of construction these days, in addition to whatever that plaster crap is in the front of the in the fascia, some composite material that's noxious and poison. We discussed the old buildings, stuff in granite, what makes them important, what's encoded in the buildings, that kind of stuff. The degrees necessary to build it. that the Masonic degrees were incorporated within in a number of different ways, angles and degrees. Degrees are another way to describe an angle. Or it is the way, I guess. 45, 38 degrees, whatever you got. As opposed to inches, and that's what the compass and the square represent. Is the square is like inches, feet, yards, and the square is inches, feet, yards, or meters, I guess, and the compass is minutes, seconds, degrees, right? Hours, crossing the meridian, AM, PM. Which represents the conquest of the sea and land. And G, which represents a type of God, is conquest of the air, the spirits, the spirit realm, if you will, as part of what the esoteric and the esoteric and the exoteric talks about. You're going from the physical body up into the spiritual matter of a man, and blah, 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 blah. Encoded in the buildings and in the architecture, right? If you know what you're looking for. So the coming here, one of the reasons, with my building experience, coming into this, with what I know, but being a student, the whole time I'm here, being a student of the architecture and learning, and no matter where I go, kind of looking at buildings that are maybe even dilapidated, and just kind of seeing past the time taking its toll, if you will. Time lights a cigarette, puts it in your mouth, then pulls your finger, and another finger, then a cigarette. Oh, you're a rock and roll suicide. That's David Bowie, by the way. My anniversary for my sober date is January 10th. And that's the date of his passing. Over to the other side. He's still here with us. Just like I'll be here with you when I go over to the other side. And here's the thing about it. Like, I'm from the fucking Stone Age. I've lived here. I've lived long enough. I've done a lot of stuff. I make miracles. I bring joy and happiness. But eventually it's time, right? Eventually it will be fucking time. And honestly, it's like, there's, like a major ass blast from the sun is a huge shock to the system. Like, no one's really fucking ready for that. And we get lucky. We get fucking lucky. Sometimes it's better not even to see it, because most of them miss us, right? However, if you saw the huge ass things that come from the sun, and like how little of it we get and get brushed by, and like, holy fuck, holy fuck, holy fuck, holy fuck, holy fuck, holy fuck. If one of those things hit us, like just spawn out, like the auroras, like I don't know if I'll be seeing auroras, at this. We tend to get overcast during the auroras, where most of the other areas get auroras. We get fucking rain or heavy clouds or whatever. So no, I haven't seen them at this latitude, but it's not because they're not coming down this latitude. It's because we get fucking rain, or we get rain or clouds or rain. I love the rain, but no, we don't get auroras anyway. So yeah, so like one of those heavy. We're not. They're not even that strong. And they're lighting up auroras all the way down to like the south, and they're and interesting colors, those purple colors that you're not really supposed to see. Yeah, we get them, and weird ass green, not just green, but there's a few shades of green actually in there, right? Depending on what's being flared at. There's at least two shades of green. One is a little darker, one's a really light green. And the Worcester, they have different colors, right? Like for a reason. There's other chemicals up. There's plasma, all kinds of stuff that up there where they like living. And I like thinking of these things as living things, right? So in some cases, a lot of those architectures were intended to, like capture some of that energy, right? With the spires, the spiky spires, right? And it's kind of grounded. The whole building is grounded by the rocks being so closely, fitted together. Rumor has it. So I came to Providence, came to the city to look at, don't want to say it by name, to look at the architecture. It's a beautiful city. All right. If you know me, you know where I'm living. And I'm going to be leaving here soon, right? So, that's part of what this is. It's part of why I'm doing this fundraiser here, is to help me get some travel funds together, right? Or help make plans, right? So, modern construction, the concrete starts cracking in 5 years. The granite doesn't crack. The granite was put together differently, right? It's a whole different type of not only architecture, way they design building, everything, all of it. All the trades have changed. The building trades, I've talked about this before, that, bigger equipment, heavier, it's like they would build with stone, and you could move certain blocks of stone, but they build with steel that are they're heavy pieces. They get cranes in to do this stuff. So the bigger the crane you have, the smaller of a margin of error, of things being off, of the wind, taking it, like things get built modularly, and they just plop these big ass sections down. It's not like it was created on the spot. They designed it and built it somewhere else and trucked the segments into place. Whole front unit. It's not, it's actually not brick, although it could be, but it's not brick. It's a concrete material that's poured into a mold and then shaped to look like brick in a lot of cases. Or even poured and then shaped in place. Like, that's a thing. That does happen. So they get big-ass cranes in to lift this stuff as per necessary. And the bigger the crane, the heavier the load, the smaller and greater your tolerances need to grow. Otherwise, the error compounds itself times thousands, times a million, whatever, hundreds of tons hanging in the air. Once it starts moving, you now have millions of pounds that are between the weight of the thing itself, hundreds of tons, the weight of itself, hundreds of tons, and the crane, which has got to be also hundreds of tons, stacks of 50 plates, 50 T, you got some 10s that normally come with it, a couple 10s, the 10T, and then you got stacks of 50, and then maybe 100, and then you got ballast on top of that. We're talking about millions of pounds of dynamic force here between the crane and the boom, and a ton is 2,000 pounds, right? You start doing the math on this. In motion. It's a kinetic force, right? So this is a different way that they build now out of necessity with the cranes, these big ass cranes, a 200-ton crane, a super crawler crane for more weight than that, whatever. To bridges. They're taking a bridge down. One of the bridges, the Washington Bridge, that got national notoriety for how bad it is and how someone ripped off the state. One more of the example, right? We're not talking politics here, just building and engineering disasters. And the political corruption behind them. So the building methods are different now than it had been at the closing out of the Stone Age. And I'm not going to go into how they built the monuments, the 13,000 years ago, the stone monuments. And I'm just dating this for the purpose of this video. You believe what you want. Your results may vary, but like that to cover the nodal grid points of the planet. All these constructions that are made of material that they trucked in dozens or hundreds of miles away, huge stones like in Lebanon and Baalbek and, you know, Syria and Babylonia, Iraq, Persia, and oh, okay. Oh, I'm getting a low battery notice. You know, in South America and all of that, that they are on grid points of the planet, and they're for a reason, right? So, all right. So that kind of, I guess that'll close out part 4 of this radio. I'm about to lose my phone for the battery, and the video is going on long enough. Or I guess kind of on in this location talking about this. So the difference of construction, they have huge cranes that do stuff now, and these huge cranes can fail because we haven't really had cranes for that long, not as long as we've had hand tools anyway, or not as long as we've had horse buggy that they've been using hundreds, thousands of years, right? Relatively speaking. To give you some stuff to think about, right? You know, I'm not sure how to end this. The plane's coming in for a landing, and I'm not sure how good the landing gear is, but I got to wrap it up. You know, the difference in architecture is one of the main things I want to talk about and point out.